Hello, and welcome to the Conscious Communion podcast, where we traverse through the inner dwellings of the human experience through conversation. I'm your host, Danae. Join me as we explore the interconnection of creativity and community. Sami Lane is a passionate believer, chaser, and curator of good things. She spends her time sensitively seeking beauty in the world and using it to create more beauty. Professionally, her focus is on the intersection of creativity and people. Her goal is to create things that remind people of who they are and how to connect with the great majesty of this beautiful life. Sami has had the privilege to create these connections through photo, video, design, storytelling, and creative direction. She's currently living in Los Angeles with her wife, Britt Barron, endlessly in search to live a life of curiosity and consciousness in a way that leads them to creative expanse and the most cherished of memories. Sami and I met at church, and we have been through massive evolves to be where we are today, finding our true embodiment and where we land in this beautiful moment in the here and now. I'm so grateful and honored to have her with me today. Yay.
Oh my gosh,
Hello.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Hi.
thank you. Hi.
This is the best.
So good. It's so good. Especially because there's been so much evolve that's happened in both of our lives, and meeting when we did and connecting the way we did, and knowing that it was such a soul connection. And then having that shape shift into us really finding our own spiritual path that was apart from the church.
Yeah. Yep. Goodness. What a wild 7 years it's been, right? Roughly around that.
It's been about 7 years.
It's a special number to circle back to also, but yeah, I'm really grateful to be realigned with you on this path in different versions of us, but still on the same path. So,
Agreed.
So good. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. No, I think it's special to note that when you and I both connected the first time we actually spent time together, our conversation was specifically about the LGBTQ community. I didn't know where you were at with that, but I was just sharing my own experience with my brother being a part of the community and really feeling comfortable and safe at the church that we were both going to, because there wasn't a full awareness of what they actually believed in. It was almost like there was this facade, and you were working there at the time, and
Yep.
wild. And then for you to transition and for you to be embodying your truth with your beautiful wife. Can you please just share what that journey has been like? Because that's massive. That's massive.
It's so cool to remember. I mean, obviously, I think in that time when you're reflecting on when we first met and what we were talking about, I mean, I was in the thick of, I think, my own just unraveling in that way. And we met at a church that, really felt diverse and inclusive and kind of the new way or a hope of where the church was going and where my spirituality was going and what I really believed. I think that God at a time was very accepting of and showed love towards. And so I think in the midst of that conversation, I look back and I'm like, oh man, my wife and I at that time, at that time we were closeted and we were living in a house together, and I was secretly messing up a bed because we lived in the same room to make sure our roommates didn't know we were together because of, of where we were at that church and not knowing. I mean, it claimed to be a gray space, but there was still so much unknown outside of that space. And so, to zoom out and know that I was closeted at that time, hiding, I think one of the most beautiful things I've ever found on this earth. And then to now be married for almost 6 years and be past that time. And so many full circles, but it's so wild to have that parallel of being like having that conversation and being in the thick of it myself, which you had no idea.
I had no idea. I just knew your heart was for people, and I knew that you weren't okay with that.
Yeah.
For the church to not accept all people, because there was a likeness that we recognized in one another. And it was so interesting because that was why I left the previous church that I was attending, was literally because they did not accept the LGBTQ community, which made it very clear that they weren't accepting of all people.
Yeah.
Not about it.
Yeah.
So I left.
Yeah.
And then was already deep in it and serving and working with the kids in the community. And that made it hard to leave because I wanted to be a safe space for them if they were closeted.
Yeah, that is, the whole thing feels like it's rooted in love, right? I think that's why we're drawn to that space, is to be able to love like unconditionally and to bring that love and acceptance that we feel from some higher power or something that, whatever you claim to believe in. I think I believe in love to my core. So to be a part of something that feels like so loving is the goal, is the hope. But then to know that there's limitations to that love is where, those boundaries have to be set. And if it comes to self-love or loving others, I think that's a line that's very firm in the sand for me, obviously, and for you as well, clearly. Yeah.
Truly. Yeah, no, I definitely, when you came out and, it shook the church and it made it very clear what was happening. And it was, I was so proud of you. I'm so proud of you both. And they really, even still, the church really didn't make any statements. They were still kind of walking around the idea. And then maybe 6 months after you all left, there was a time where they gave the service leaders like a worksheet, like, how will you handle this? And Brian literally ripped it up. He was like, we're out. We're out. We're not going to tell people that they're wrong for choosing to love who they want to love. We're out. That was a firm line in the sand when it was like very clear, this is what we believe in. All right. We don't accept all people here. It's time to go. And when you left, what was that like for you all to kind of transition? And then I'm sure it took time to even embody and feel like you could step into this new embodied presence with your own spirituality. Was there a purging that took place? Because I know for me there was almost like a space of anger that you had to feel into. Did you experience that?
Oh, for sure. And, there was a lot of grief, I think, was in that of, again, like hoping that space would be all encompassing of love. And then, not seeing people step up or not seeing people show up for you when you were perceived as a different way, as straight. And then to see them, those same people that, thought that's who you were. And then you truly live into who you are. And then there's limitations to the love. I think that was where grief came. And, we weren't super public with it, but my wife, who was writing a blog at the time, wrote a blog piece about coming out and us coming out. And that was kind of our I don't know if I could cuss. I think I could cuss, but it was kind of like, okay, it was like this, this isn't that church anymore, but yeah, we're like, fuck it. We're like, let's just be on the other side. It was a very like us against the world kind of thing. And, there was beautiful, at the same time, there's this juxtaposition between those we had to grieve and lose because of, who they claimed God was, right? And them feeling like they needed to stay and follow that. But then the beautiful side of people like you and Brian and other people that were part of that same community that did choose to love us in our fullest, right? So there's this beautiful picture of this yin and yang, being able to see the grief side, but then being overwhelmed by the love and the support. Like both Britt and I's parents are very supportive, and we're church people as well. And so, you know, it wasn't always like that. We're very grateful to have that experience. And there's a lot of people part of the community that don't have that. So we feel very grateful to have family in full support. And then so many friends. Unfortunately, Beads is an Enneagram 7. I'm an Enneagram 9. So we're just like, what we can't see won't hurt us. Like, we were just like, okay, bye, peace out. And we kind of didn't look back, you know? So that in a way was really special for Beans and I, or Britt, you know, we call her Beans. So if I say Beans, that's also my wife. I said at the altar. So that's what I
love
know.
that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's really incredible and important to know that your families did choose to support you, because that must have been such a challenge for folks that I know for my family, it was really challenging for them to accept my brother, just because it was, it wasn't, and it was, it was, it was the programming that needed to be deconstructed for them to just realize, no, doesn't need to be like this. We can live a new way. We can believe a new thing.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
That's brave for your parents and Beans' parents as well. Beans' parents were very involved in the church. So I mean, y'all set the tone for, I think really, I do, in that community and in that space. And it made it very clear, we don't need to live like this. And I know that other people left the church too, just for those specific reasons.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that that's important to note, you know?
I think it is like, you know, the gray is kind of sexy, like being like, oh, we live in the gray, we accept, we do like whatever. But at the end of the day, I do think that having black and white beliefs are important, to say, I am this, I'm not this, I believe in this, I don't believe in this. I think it is really important, especially in spaces like that, to claim what you believe, because then the people know that they can be a part of that community or not. You know, and that's where that particular church kind of failed and is failing still, because I think that in its grayness, it was defining that we don't talk about that. We don't talk about that. Oh, but that we talk about, but this we don't. And I think in general, that is just, it is not a healthy thing to have you know, those type of things, to say, oh no, we don't talk about that. If you're truly living in the gray space, you accept whatever comes to you and process that in the gray together. And so there's a red flag if something comes into that space and you're not able to process that or bring that forth, or you know, really have a conversation, you know, in any community. It doesn't need to be just a spiritual community or religious community. I think, you know, that's just, you know, it's an important thing for me, I think.
Agreed. So, yeah. Fluidity is different than, you know, having the ability to be fluid in your thoughts and your beliefs, and knowing that if a new position or a new idea is brought your way, that you can actually address it. That's what's important, that you address it, not get gaslighted in the process of actually like believing that something is, you know, worth processing, if you will.
Yeah.
Because everything's worth processing.
Totally. And that's where I think the spiritual journey I took the last like 7 years, and reflecting on that time and who I was and what I believed. I mean, I was very involved in youth group. I went to a Christian college. And so I was very in the midst of that. And I think now looking back, I'm able to see what a fragile God I believed in, what a limiting God I believed in that had limitations, and who, and we would say he then. I don't believe the same things I believe then. I feel very much more of a mystic and very way more universe. But in a way it's the same, but it's just less limiting. It's like, it doesn't need to be so fragile. Like that God that I believed in, who could only accept A and B, that's like a really not a powerful God, right? That's not a powerful like entity that I could put my trust and hope in. That's a very limiting, God that can only do so much. So I look back and there's this analogy, this image that the church that I go to now, one of the pastors talks about, kind of our old spiritual way is this cup that is like, say, imagine this cup on this stool. And so most of my religious experience has been looking at this cup on the stool. It's just like, okay, that's that. But through the last 7 years, it's been like, you zoom out, right? You see the cup on the stool and then you're in the room. And then you zoom out to say, oh, there's a cup on the stool in the room in this building. And then you say, like, you go on and on, like, oh, it's in this city, it's in this state, it's in this country, it's in this world. And that's kind of my experience and how my spirituality has evolved now, is being able to see it so much outside of the cup, if that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. Yes, absolutely. It's even thinking, I mean, on a science perspective, like on a nature perspective, I know you appreciate nature deeply.
Yes,
it's like
very much.
We are on a planet, on a rock, floating in space, and there's other planets. Like, to
spinning at like a very high speed.
Very high speed. Like, come on.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be so linear. Like, really, like, if we look to nature as our guide and to see all of the different organisms that take place and part into this grand, beautiful life that we're living and that we're a part of, it's not black and white.
Oh my gosh. Like, nature is truly like infinite. Like, we're constantly finding new species, new like bacteria, like these little tiny things, new like leaves or whatever. Like, it is never ending. So the fact that we would even believe that ourselves can stop evolution, or if ourselves don't grow at a certain point, like, that is not true if we are looking at nature. And we were just in Montana this last weekend, and we were at Yellowstone, and we have never been there. And the ecosystems that simply exist in this one area that we were on, this, like, all these, it was like this geothermal areas where it's like 190 degree pools, and then it's like 6 feet of snow on the other side. That was just overwhelming to take in the diversity of that space alone, let alone like this entire planet. Like,
totally.
So yeah.
I mean, you live in LA, so even just that in comparison to Yellowstone, I've never had the pleasure of visiting, but it really is just a testament to this beautiful experience that we get to live. And how dare we put God in a box?
Oh my gosh, seriously. How boring is that?
How boring. How boring. Yeah, so boring. Like, even just the beautiful background you have behind you, all the colors, all of the diversity, and, like, I remember going to your house for the first time and being like, oh, I even vibe with the way you stylize. Like, yeah, heck yeah.
Same. I would love to back for some of those pictures behind you.
It's just like, we, gotta funk it up. Like, gotta keep it funky, like,
for sure.
And the same goes for like being able to be creative with your spirituality. And I think knowing you, and one of the first things I was ever drawn to and brought into your just essence was your creativity and the ability that you had and have it's ongoing. It's this beautiful evolution of your creativity and motion. And I was just totally drawn into that. And I was like, yes, I am drawn to this person because they are a creative being able to just kind of live in the fluidity of it all. And what has your process been like with spirituality and being able to use your creative lens in that way to kind of just play and dabble and just explore?
Yeah.
What's that been like for you?
Oh my gosh. Like, I talked about the grief part of it. And I think that for anyone who's coming out of something like that or has experienced, you know, evolving your faith, something you believed in, I believed in for 25 years or so. And then it just overnight kind of shifted. I think there just was that grief. So I think through that grief, I kind of just let it all go. I let it all just like almost just burn down. Right. And, you know, as in nature, like some stuff grows from ashes and burnt places that, you know, needed to come up or what hasn't been there for years or like I just learned that because I was in Yellowstone. I'll come back to this, but I just learned that there's this huge fire that moved through Yellowstone. And I think it was in the 80s. And when the fire broke out through there, there's these trees that they pop seeds like popcorn at a certain degree level. And I think that the degrees were 106, something like that. Maybe we'll Google that anyways. But fire burns at this degree. So it created this seed popping. And when they were doing this tour, we saw this rock in the middle of one of the rivers. And this rock covered with snow, like snow. And then in the middle of it is this gorgeous tree, and which is called Christmas tree in Yellowstone. And he is telling us the story because it literally planted there because of the fire that popped the seed onto the thing, and then also repopulated a bunch of seeds like through the fire. So even through the burning, there is a growing, you know. And so that image just stood with me, and I kind of like feel like that's what happened over these last years in my spirituality. And now just like this zoom out of, oh man, like I just feel so much more a part of my spirituality now. It's so much more embodied versus like more of I had so much of a conscious cerebral spirituality, like religiosity, I think before. And now I think I can fully feel in my body and my heart and in my head, like this belonging that I didn't feel before. And, you know, my wife is still a pastor. I met her as a pastor. She paused for a second, but then this other pastor, our friend Corey, he reached out to Beans when all this was going down at our other church and was like, hey, do you want to be a pastor? Knowing that she was queer and that we were together. And she said, like, why not? Let's give it a try. And so for about the 6 years that we've been married, we've been a part of this amazing community called New Abbey. And it's based in LA, but it's digital as well. And it is the most healing place I think I've ever been to. I mean, it's mostly people, misfits, right? It's mostly made up of people that are like us, that got kicked out or didn't feel like they could belong at a place. And now there's a place that you do belong at, and there's no limitation. I mean, my wife is a pastor, but I wouldn't necessarily identify as a Christian or as someone who believes the same things as her. And we have a really beautiful relationship in that way, to accept each other's beliefs where they are and we don't feel intimidated by each other's differences. We feel very almost empowered by it, actually, and being able to talk about our own experiences and how we feel connected with the divine within ourselves and within this life, you know? So I definitely more claim to be a witch than I do a pastor's wife. But I am like I'm the residence crystals lady, at our church. And, you know, Danae, I don't know if you ever felt this, but like, I now go into this space where I once needed, I like longed for it. I like needed it to belong and to feel like connected. But now I go there to see. Like, I don't have to be seen anymore in that space. And I instead go there to see and be reminded of hope, of resilience, of this beautiful ability to come back from the burning of the fire, to evolve, to grow without intimidation, without limitation that once existed in other spaces we were in. So
yeah. I think I'm finding that now. I think that there's been a dance with moving here and not having friends, and then having friends, and then really coming to the understanding that at the end of the day, I don't need anyone else's validation but my own. I need to love myself fully, wholly, and completely. And I need to understand the depths of my being, because that's how I am able to see God in others. That's how I'm able to see the great creator in everything that we get to connect and, you know, interact with. But I want to circle back to what you said about, it's so interesting. And I would almost love to have another conversation, maybe with the four of us, because
yes, love that.
It sounds very familiar, the dynamic, because Brian's still, you know, we've had conversations and it's been a dance. And I'm sure it hasn't always been easy for you to, you know, have those different roles and to have those different beliefs. And I'm sure it's different, like having two feminine, like, you know, just females, right? Having those conversations and the ability to accept and kind of like lean into the fluidity of it all, right? But what a beautiful testament to being outside the box, to creating a new paradigm and having different beliefs, but still holding that truth that God just is, that you are the great I am, right? And like embodying that however makes sense for each of you.
I would love to have a conversation, and we totally have arrived at that. I mean, I feel like for what you're talking about is accepting your own divine then allows you to see others in their divine and in their wholeness. And if that's the root of these conversations, then there's no reason to like, I think in my old life, I'll speak for me, there was this pressure to convince everyone that they need to believe what you believe, or that you need to communicate it in a way so that you save this person. It was this crazy savior complex, right? And to just be like, I truly don't give a shit about what you believe. If you're a kind, loving person and you like listen and you like there's more important things than what your religious identification is. And truly, if I met someone who's still in that old space and they were loving and kind and accepting, I think it could work. You know, I feel like there's just, I'm like, how do you live your life? You know? That's more important than, you know, I don't know. I'm like, it doesn't really matter to me.
Totally.
Anymore.
No,
I think,
I couldn't agree more. I think, you know, we're still friends with some people from the church and they know why we left. We made it very clear. We made it clear to our students.
Yeah.
We didn't make it clear to all of them, but all of the students that we were close with, when they asked us why we were leaving, we told them why we were leaving. We love you all. And it's not that we don't want to be here to support you, and we will be here to support you, but it won't be in this space. We can hang out outside of the context of Wednesday nights.
Yeah.
You know, and we're still close with some of the kids. I mean, that's the beautiful testament to relationships. And, you know, it doesn't need to be constructed in the way that, I mean, community is beautiful when it's in a church setting, and New Abbey is a beautiful testament to that. For sure.
And it's just safety, right? Like you letting know those kids that you are a safe person and that you are accepting and loving of who they are. And truly, there's so many aspects of the Bible and the things that we believe that are really beautiful. And the grace part and understanding, like there's so many beautiful things. Like we don't have to ignore or kick out all those things that, you know, I don't know. I just feel like we can take the parts that apply that we need with us, and y'all being like, we are safe people and we embody love and we live love. That's what you said. You're like, we do this thing outside of these four walls. That is this church, you know, we actually love. And it's very beautiful, you know.
Well, it's the same for you too. That is what you cultivate, and it's clear, and you have set on a path to do it in your work and in the way that you live your lives. So you're living with that integrity in everything you do. I mean, even the money that's coming back to you because of the work that you do, it's coming back with integrity because it's coming from a place of truth.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
And so it's like that frequency.
Yep. That's what, you know, if we're doing our work truly, I think that what is for us, you know, like letting it come up, and really just letting it come up is one thing, and then acknowledging it is another. But I think when we do that, it is a magnet to what is supposed to be there, you know?
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I loved that you said that you would classify yourself as a witch. I definitely, that is a term that I've like, you know, I have a book that really helped me in my spiritual journey, and it's The Green Witch. And it's, you know, it's talks about spirituality and finding it within the great outdoors. And I know that you too have that connection to source through nature, and yeah, just being able to make those connections of it being, it's so much of the essence is still there. It's just taking out that terminology of the he and, you know, throwing in whatever makes sense for you, and finding that relativity in nature and so on and so forth. So what does your process, and what did that look like? Just kind of recreating that paradigm, because coming from church and then starting to practice and play with tarot cards and crystals and like anything else that made sense for you and your spirit. I'm sure at first it felt uncomfortable, and like, I'm sure you felt a little squirmy. I know I did too. So I'm super curious what that process was like for you.
Well, I feel like it was so taboo, right? So I feel like we were, I mean, I've been told wild stories in my when I was like a Christian, you know, like so many things were tied to Satan, and there was like, and I believe in negative energy. I feel that. I can feel that sometimes. But I just think I actually find it quite humorous now that like I believe what I believed was taboo, you know? But I think it started with that grief, and then became, because everything dropped and burnt away, I got to really say, what do I want to pick up? Like, I think what replaced that rigidness was this curiosity, which has always been a part of my spirit. I think that has always, even when I was in those limited spaces, curiosity was always there. I'd be like, why did that person do that? Oh, why did that happen? Why did the bush just burn out of nowhere? Like what? Like I always led with questions. And so I think this return back to curiosity, to be like, okay, well, if that's burned down, then like, what do I want to pick up? What do I want to try? And I think in regards to tarot cards, like I love just kind of, I often ask this question when I pull, which is just, what do I need to see that I can't see? Like that's my common ask. I love that. And it's almost revealing something that's right in front of me, right? It's like, what do I need to notice that I'm unable to notice right now? And I think when we had gone to Joshua Tree, and and I was actually shooting for a magazine when we went to Joshua Tree, and my friend was writing the story on a tarot reader out there. And she was like, hey, do you want to get your tarot cards read? And it was kind of like right on the outskirts of what was going on, you know, right past it. And I was like, okay, like, I think I was like really nervous. Like, what is going to be channeled in this? Like, what am I letting in or whatever? And so when I first got my reading, and there was so much intention behind it, and truly, I think energy is energy now, right? I think I really believe in energy, and I could feel the positive and negative like a battery. And so I think with that intention of, you know, what do I need to see? Whatever. And being really astonished by, oh my gosh, I really thought this was only like a church thing. I like really thought that energy only existed there, you know? And so then to see that energy could actually exist in another place was the start of that for me.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And so that was kind of the start. And then we moved to Austin during the pandemic. And that was kind of like, you know, y'all moving to Oregon. There's this whole other side of, okay, who do I want to be? Like, what do I want to explore? Like, there's these ties that don't exist in your identity that you had, you know, in even a place. And so there's this amazing, I don't know if you've been to Austin, but there's an amazing springs pool called Barton Springs. And it's this natural spring, and it's like 68 degrees all year. And I'm a water sign. So I have to be wherever the water is. I will get my clothes. I will strip down. It doesn't matter. But Austin is this like magical, energetic place. And every full moon, people go to this place, Barton Springs, and there's like hundreds of people that just intermittently like start howling at the moon. Like, it's just like a normal thing. Like, all of a sudden, it's like, oh, and you're just like in this pool, and we're howling, and it was so magical. So that was when I started actually my like tracking the moon cycles and setting intentions on the full moon and the new moon, and being hyper aware of this thing that has always existed, that feels bigger than me, that is constant, that that I am just that controls so much of our everything actually about our, but you know, gravity. Ever heard of that? And like tides and all these things that, you know, I almost like, not that the moon became my God, but kind of like, I think that it brought a physicality to a faith that I didn't have before. Like, you know, God was always this like thing that we never see or feel. And I think the moon, I just like immediately fell in love. I just like feel like so in love with the moon.
Yeah.
And what she brings like every month. I feel like the moon is a she, but you could feel whatever the moon is for you, but you know, I don't know.
La Luna.
Yeah,
Luna.
Exactly,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She's giving me major femme energy. So
1,000%. And even just to think about moon cycle and like the idea of us menstruating and going through a cycle of 28 days for our physicality and our wombs to go through the same process and the same phases.
That is not an accident, people.
No.
It is not an accident. And I think that was the first time I ever connected with that, because that idea like was so taboo before, right? And I never thought of that before, even though every month, twice a month, you feel these gravitational pulls. And now being aligned, it's just like clicked, you know?
Same.
So clicked.
No, totally.
I am on the new moon and my wife is on the full moon. So we are like cycles, which I heard is a healer. You're a healer.
It is?
I didn't know that. I still have to learn so much more about it. It's a never ending thing, but it's
a never ending thing.
But I think that's like really beautiful. So yeah.
I love that. Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's really interesting because even in biblical times, if you look at Christian mysticism and the Gnostic beliefs and traditions, the women, if you've ever read The Red Tent, it's such a beautiful read.
Yes. Yeah.
And it really is just this coming back to the remembrance of the cycles of the moon, sitting with other women as you process your cycles and doing life in community with other women. And it's just one small story and one small piece to the puzzle, but it's also this piece that was never talked about and what we learned about in Christian community.
Yes. And it's the embodiment piece, right? Which is so disconnected. I was so disconnected from myself because so much of the language in that space was you need to abandon yourself. You need to be selfless. You need to like think of others before yourself. You need to like love others better than you, whatever. There is just all this like self neglect in that. So I think even when it comes to like now, I think like yoga is church for me. Being able, anything that I can embody, like walking in nature, being barefoot, like as much as possible, connecting to bigger, like to those spaces. I think in any way you can embody and feel in that way is just like this counter. So jumping in the spring.
And howling at the moon.
And howling at the moon.
Howling at the moon. Yeah. That is a trip. I've only done it a few times with people and it is powerful.
Oh, it's so fun. It's just this like play and
it is.
Yeah, it's so fun. I don't know. It's just so beautiful. I love it.
It is. And I think it is holding reverence for something that is cosmic and just, I mean, there should be reverence for this thing that is controlling our tides and really just we depend on it for our cycles and everything that nature consists upon, you know, like each equinox, each season, which is so reflective of what we go through in our life. It's like, it depends on the moon and the sun and the season and basically just the intervals of when those, you know, timetables are happening. What is time besides what light we get in the sky?
Yep. Seriously.
Like,
seriously.
You know?
It's so, I had a couple like moon journals that I feel like are behind me somewhere, but that really helped me like realign with that and like self-reflection in like building this internal self-reflection rhythm like each month. And connecting with that, you know? So
no, for sure. I know Brian bought me a moon journal not too long ago, and it was such a sweet testament to the evolve that we've gone through because he knows that is deep reverence for me. That is something that I respect and I do pay homage to her cycles, and I depend on it for me to feel in my embodied self, in alignment with what God and spirit and whatever you want to call that essence of the great creator is for me. And I know it is for you. And I think that that's so incredible that, you know, we haven't talked about this. Like, I think we've known just from knowing, just we see each other, we get it.
Yep.
But we haven't had the conversation, and I'm so glad that we are having this open, expressive conversation because it's been a beautiful evolve, I'm sure, for you. But with it has come a lot of death cycles, right? A lot of
Oh, for sure. And it's necessary, you know? It's an important part of life, and embracing that part. And I think it I am very grateful for the hardest seasons of my life because I wouldn't be who I am without them. You know, I wouldn't have people on this journey without them. And so I think it's a really important and beautiful part of life. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah. I look at some of the hardest seasons. I feel like I just am coming out of a pretty challenging season. A lot of death cycles, but almost like they've been happening at a quicker pace, like the quantum aspect of the jump back and the feedback of like knowing that because I've accepted these processes as being a part of my evolve, okay, let's accept them and loosen our grip on the hold to what's feeling uncomfortable. You said something about that for you and beings and being a 7 and a 9 on the Enneagram and really looking to, and it's not that you're not acknowledging the dark. It's not that you're not acknowledging the pain portals of, you know, the death cycles, if you will, but you can also choose to look at what's good and lean into the what you're grateful for in this sweet life.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Oh, for sure. And I think for both Beans and I, you know, that optimistic, positive oblivion is like, is a coping and was in particular coping for us, you know, to be able to get through some of the hardest seasons was to find a positive way through it, you know. And I think through these death cycles now, it's embracing the true shit of it all, you know. And that is like not over trying to push through and not trying to like hold, you know, only positive energy. It's like, oh, okay. I think that's where we got to find a new edge in ourselves, in each other, in our relationship, in our spirituality. We got to push new edges or create new edges or let them create themselves, and see it just farther, because it's like new ways of doing it, you know. I love what I was thinking, like what you're saying about death was like, there's this part of death that is actually like rest. And I think that like there's parts of us, like I do therapy. It's very like, I'm a big therapist fan. But in my work, it's very somatic and it's a lot of inner child work. And so I think a lot of these death cycles are actually like hearing my younger selves, like really listening to them and then giving them permission to rest and essentially die, right? To be like, it's okay. Like, it's okay. These ones that have been like screaming within you that needed to be heard, that I think just were like begging for rest, you know? And so I think a lot of these death cycles are just letting those versions of us just rest.
1,000%. I literally just had some creative flow that came out of that, because coming from my past versions of me, if you will, I really struggle with rest because fixing, I'm just, I want to achieve, I want to, you know, push through cycles at time. And it's like, yeah, you can do as much work as you're trying to do on your spiritual evolution and on your process, but it only goes so far. You need to let go and find the current and the flow of life to just let it take you.
Yeah. And you're like an athlete. So I feel like
that's where it comes from.
You know, like you have to really like take some grit and push. You have to go to a different place when you're doing a sport or you're competing in something. And so it makes sense that you would want to like push through these things and just like click out of your body and be like, let's fucking go, you know? And so of course there's going to be resistance in that when the embracing that other part means I slow down. It means I come in last. It means I don't finish, you know? And that's really hard when you're a competitor or you are competitive or you just like want to do good. Like, you know, you want to do a good job.
Totally. Yeah. No, I think that's what's in this season, in the midway point of spring. We're almost there, right?
Yeah,
a couple weeks away.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest takeaway that I've received this winter is you'll be okay. And it's almost like in falling into that frequency of flow, that's where you actually get to receive all of the pleasure, because it's like, no, this is all meant for you, the rest and everything that you've poured into, and it's the reciprocation. That's like, that's the dance, right?
Yeah. Like seasons are a gift, like truly reflecting, like that's so beautiful. I would love to know how you track seasons, because I mean in LA it's like basically the same all the time. This is a little harder to know what season it is. Honestly, it feels like summer all the time, but I think that there is such a beautiful reflection in seasons, like you said, like winter, like truly farmers and people that, you know, ancestors, they rested in the winter because that's all you could do, you know, like that is so beautiful. And in a culture that asks so much of us and truly never stops, we have to set our own seasonal boundaries or reflections. And so, yeah, wait, how do you track the seasons? Is it just being in a place that has seasons?
You can feel it. Yeah. It's like the greatest teacher. It really is, because, and I think I needed it, being someone that feels so drawn to my ancestors and what they would practice. That was so much of my spiritual like becoming and remembrance of coming back into myself is, okay, well, if my ancestors didn't believe this thing, what did they believe, and how can I go back there and fall into that remembrance? And they tracked the moon, they tracked the seasons, you know what I mean? So I mean, even yesterday when I was on a walk, I saw little sprouts coming up from the ground, and I was like, daffodils are just peeking their head out of the soil right now. And I'm like, all right, we're almost there. And we just started having sun this week. So this is the first year that I've probably actually dealt with a little bit of seasonal depression, and it's not even depression. It's just really more of like that falling into, you know, that understanding of like, it's okay. We're all right. It hurts and it's rough, but we're okay.
It's uncomfortable for sure. Yeah. You're like, when will this end? You're like, I don't know. You just got to embrace it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Spring. That's amazing.
The spring. I mean, you've been up to the Pacific Northwest, so you know what a portal it is, but
seriously. Yeah. We're going to be there in April. So hopefully we'll see in spring.
Yeah. That would be lovely. That would be lovely.
Yeah.
So I do want to ask about, because you are working in the creative sphere of all things that you do, what does your process look like to rest? Because being a creative, we're talking about winter, we're talking about resting, and that is such an important part of being able to put out creative content that's conscious.
Oh yeah. You're talking to one of my greatest battles, I think, in this, as someone who, you know, so much of the creative career, anyone's career, is the hustle. I mean, to get to where you want to go, you got to put in the work, put in the hours, and say yes to a lot of shit, you know, that all leads to wherever you want it to lead, hopefully. But, I feel like putting in all that work early and saying yes to a lot, really helps me kind of find a little bit of a lane. But so rest was not really an option, like, especially as a freelancer. You don't know when a job's going to come. There's always like, there's a scarcity mentality. And a lot of that was in my earlier, you know, career. And I'm super grateful now to be able to, I don't know, it really is the boundary setting. I think it is saying, I think I have to say no on this. Like, I think I have to trust that my no here will actually equal a different yes somewhere else. Whereas the less mature version of me be like, I gotta say yes because who knows what's gonna happen, blah, blah, blah. But I think that there's so much more. My rest now is coming in the trust of what will come. And truly, like you had mentioned, consciousness and creativity is very important to me. And I actually I've worked for a lot of companies that it's just churning out shit. You create to put it out because that's what we do. We got to hit these deadlines. We got to get it out. We got to sell this thing. We got to do. And for me, that has always been really difficult because I really want to be attached to the why of what I create, the energy that I put out. I want to know why it's existing. And so when I work with people or brands or whatever, now I can kind of bring that focus of, okay, well, I get to bring those questions in to really like squeeze out the why of a project or a dream or a vision, because that's like really what I find purpose in, is not this like fast creation to do it. But I think my contribution to this world is this squeezing out of asking the why and making something beautiful, I hope, come out of it, which what I define as beautiful in my creation is really aligning this someone's dream or idea and making it what it is. That's beautiful. I don't, to me, but I think I answered your question, I hope. But
yeah, you did. Absolutely. And it's fluid, right? Like that's the idea of this. It's like and I trust spirit in you and the voice that wants to come through.
Yeah.
So that's
And I'm in a wrestling of this as well. And as being someone whose reward has been in creating something, right? Like I get a monetary reward in what I produce. I think that for me, I'm in this evolution moment right now of trying to really figure out what the next version of my why will be. And I'm terrified and I'm excited, but mostly terrified because I've really spent most of my life producing for other people, but I feel this calling or pulling to creating something out of my own for my own self, which means it doesn't need to be anything, but I am someone who puts an insane amount of pressure on what I produce. And so my inner critic is on loud right now because I have some ideas that feel like are just for me. But I'm so hard on what I do. And so it's scary, but I feel like there's something really cool on the other side if I could figure out how to get through this. But
oh yeah, I think I need to come to LA and we need to do some breath work.
Yes.
Yeah. No, there's so many ways for you to find that other side, right? And I think something that I've been chewing on lately that I hope will be helpful to you is there's no failing when you have the opportunity to gain a new experience. There's really no failing. And even with those death cycles and you welcoming them with open arms and you just learning through those processes, we always have to learn something, even when we put ourselves out there, even though it's uncomfortable. That's the portal. That's the portal to our own evolve.
Yep.
It's like, this thing worked, this thing didn't. All right. Cool.
Yep.
And that goes for relationships. That goes for anything.
Yeah.
For relationships, creative projects, like those feel like really relevant and just like the everyday for a creator, right? It's like you and the type of person you are a social being and you thrive with learning from people and being in flow with other individuals. But it's also about finding that respite for yourself to know that ebb and flow, right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And, I think what is a terrifying thing for me in this process is that it actually is another click in to self. Like it's almost like another level up to acknowledging and embracing your story and what that is, and then how to tell that story. So it's like I've almost spent my years on earth so far arriving to this point of acknowledgement, and now I'm kind of evolving into this telling part. And I think that is a part that I never thought would be a part of my story or myself or I just thought this is what I was going to do, but I feel this draw to telling, and that could be through so many avenues. But I think that is the part that is, oh shit, you know?
Totally.
I'm reading this incredible book. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's called The Creative Act, and it's Rick Rubin's new book.
I'll read it.
Oh my gosh, it's so amazing, and it's so much of what you're saying of embracing spirit, embracing source, like through our creativeness. And that doesn't mean you are a person that gets rewarded through monetization of what you do. Like, everyone is creative. Everyone has a creative part of them, and this play part and this like beautiful curiosity is our creativity. And so it's a really incredible book, and it has really been kind of the push I have been having towards this, like the telling part of my story, or living or showing or whatever it is.
Whatever it is. And I think that's what's cool is that you get to play with it and just let it be whatever it wants to be.
Yeah,
because it's an expression.
It's not just the positive part. It's not just one side, which has been, it's like all of it. Like, so
all of it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. That's what The Artist's Way did for me. I'm not sure if you've,
that book. I love that.
I know.
It totally. You will love this book. It's
okay. I'm sure I will. I'm sure I will. And I'm always looking for good creative reads that help me level up.
Well, I am very inspired by you, because I think that being able to hold this space and talk to people and really let things flow through you, it's a very vulnerable place to be. And you're clearly so beautifully good at holding the space and being present and letting whatever comes come. And I'm very inspired by artists or creatives that are able to just be in the moment and let things come and not, I don't know. So
I see that in you. No, I see that in you. Totally. So it's good that we're mirrors for each other, because I have always seen that in you. I've always recognized your ability to do that. You are a storyteller and all that you do. And the way that you make cocktails, and the way that, like, truly, and the way that you dress, like, down to the T, you are a storyteller, and you are embodying whatever creative lens you want to wear today or in the moment. So I would encourage you to feel fully empowered to wear whatever outfit feels good for you and your creative expression, because I know that you have the ability to tap into whatever spirit is trying to speak through you.
Oh, thank you.
1,000%.
I received that so much.
Yes, do it. Do better. You better. One last thing. I know that you're not.
Night, so.
I know. So I love that you're not really present on social media, but that you offer a love letter to folks. And I wanted this to be an opportunity for you to share how people can find you. And really just, how you can transmit your love to folks and in that special way, because it's such a beautiful way. And you have so much love to offer folks through your words and through the transmissions that come through you. So I'd love for you to just share that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I have a love-hate relationship with Instagram. I love it because it's connected me in so many ways. I hate it because it's a distraction and a hole of comparison that I find myself in and can't get out of sometimes. So I really try to set a boundary with it. And right now I'm kind of taking like a little break from Instagram. But if you go on Instagram, you want to connect with me, it is Sami Lane Co. SamiLaneCo. But also my website, which is, it's kind of, it's again, ever changing. But that's Sami-Lane.com. And actually I feel like I have to do it now because, so I wanted to start a newsletter because I love connecting with people. But I said I have a difficult time with Instagram and getting sucked in there. So I decided I want to do this newsletter, but like a monthly newsletter, but it's going to have nothing about the news. And so I'm actually calling it a love letter, a monthly love letter, and you could subscribe on my website. If you want. You don't have to, though. It doesn't matter. But basically, my idea is to connect with people and to share what I call universal winks, which I feel like the moon, I feel like nature, I feel like anything that around us, honestly, I think that spirit can move through any of it, is constantly flirting with us. I think that the spirit is a huge flirt, and I am like just following wherever it goes. And so I call that universal winks. And when I feel like a wink happen, like there's this hummingbird that constantly comes back to our house, and I don't have a feeder. I guess we have plants that it likes, but every time I see it, I just feel this like core just connection with something bigger than me. It's like instantaneous. And so that is a small thing that I would say is like a universal wink. Or maybe you go to the store and your favorite milk, or like oat milk, is in stock and it never is in stock. Like I just like, that's like a universal wink. Or like you hit a bunch of green lights that usually you get stuck at, like a universal wink. Or like a conversation with a beautiful friend that makes you feel life is like a universal wink. So anyways, all that to say, I am going to be curating a love letter each month for people that want to feel inspired, or a universal wink, or whatever leads me to that month. I'm trying to take the pressure off and just sharing, you know?
Share whenever it feels right for you. It's the flow. And I think that's what's important about all of this, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you get to make it whatever you want to make it.
Exactly.
That's it.
Just
That's
all
it.
love, all love. That's
all love. It's all gravy.
Yeah,
it's all
for
gravy.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. One last. Because I feel like
no, keep it going.
I know you've got something for us, like a little dose of wisdom that feels relevant and resounding for you and where you're at right now, and potentially just something that could be helpful for another individual that's listening. And I just wanted to share, give you the opportunity to share a little dose of wisdom.
Oh my gosh. Dose of wisdom. Truly, I just think that I started this new like morning routine. It'll end with wisdom, I hope. And it's actually not my wisdom. I'm going to share someone else's wisdom. And it was this acronym for starting your day. And it's TIME. I don't know, TIME. And it's actually Jay Shetty. I don't know if he shared this. And I felt like it was just such a beautiful way to start your day, which is thankfulness. So just finding gratitude in the first thing when you wake up, just literally, if you have a Post-it somewhere, first thing you see and are encompassed by is by gratitude. And then which is intention, and creating this intention for your day. And it's actually creating a focus for your day is just like, saying, I want to be so present in the podcast with Danae. I want to be able to show up really well and thoughtful and intentional. And so setting an intention for your day, and then M is meditation. If that's your thing, I could do 5 minutes at most. I would love to be able to work my way up, but 5 minutes is great. And connecting my body into things, embodying my intention and my gratitude. And then it's exercise or movement or connection with going on a walk or doing something, and just like, it's almost like this, moving it from head to toes every morning. And today was honestly my first day of doing it. And I was I just feel like I wanted to share that in case you don't see that, if you haven't seen that podcast, because I feel like it's just going to be such a special part of my my just daily experience, I guess.
How you process and move in the world, right?
Yes, yeah. Would you consider that wisdom?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
I think wisdom is truly whatever, whatever's coming through for spirit. Like, I know, and that's something I trust what comes through you and your discernment and your ability to hone into the creative essence that is spirit. I trust it.
I am taking that from you today. I'm taking that as your wisdom for me today. So thank you for sharing that.
Of course. I've got more for you anytime you want, Sami. I love
come on.
You know.
Let's go.
You know I do.
We'll just do a weekly chat. This could be online or offline.
I love it. I love it. I'm here for it.
So good.
Oh, I love you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Love you.
Yes.
Of course.
Back at you.
Yeah.
Love you.
Bye, love.
Bye.
Hey there. It's Danae again. Just wanted to say thank you for sharing your time and energy with me. If this podcast resonates, please like, subscribe, follow, and share if you're willing. Reviews help too, so if you're feeling the vibe, please leave a review where you can. Sending all the love. Peace.